Now it's time for today's Perspective, and France's cultural link with Brazil is continuing. This year is the Brazil-France Cultural Year, and one of those taking part is a museum here in Paris, which is dedicated to one of the most emblematic Brazilian artists of the 20th century. Now, Frans Krajcberg died in 2017 at the age of 96. He's known as one of the first artists in the world to really highlight environmental issues, even climate change. And the executive director of the Frans Krajcberg Contemporary Art Centre, Capucine Boutte, joins us now here in the studio. Thanks very much for coming in. We can see a very emblematic photo of him there. Tell us a bit about him, because he was born, wasn't he, in Poland, a Jewish family, lost everything and moved to Brazil. Tell us about his early life.
Exactly. Before moving to Brazil, he went to Montparnasse, where he met all the key artists of his time, like Fernand Léger, Marc Chagall, and then he went to Brazil. And which is extraordinary is that in less than 10 years, he became one of the most well-known artists, because he won the great prize of the painting at the São Paulo Bienal. And what he did when he won this prize was to come back to Paris, actually, to be recognized as an international artist over there. And he took a studio in Paris, in Montparnasse, where he came back and forth all his life. To spend time and connect with the artist and art critic of the moment. And he created an association gathering his friends and people from the culture to defend his work and to create like an antenna of the Amazonia in Paris. So all his life he was going back and forth between France and Brazil. But when he arrived in Brazil, he really dived into the Brazilian nature, the very rich and exuberant Brazilian nature. And it's really this which saved his life in a way, that he started to wound his traumas from the war thanks to the nature.
Yeah, let's look at some of the pictures from them, because he covered, didn't he, and went and took pictures of the great fires raging the Brazilian forests. Tell us
Exactly.
about that.
He was one of the first to use his camera as a really a weapon to denunciate the fires. And he's been threatened to death during all his life for this work. But very soon, the images were not enough for him. So he started to collect and to extract from the fires big, huge trunks of burned wood, burned trees. And he raised them to create sculptures and totems, which he painted with natural pigments, mostly red and black pigments, which remind us to the indigenous paintings, which are both war paintings and also to protection paintings.
What was it that sort of made him passionate about that, do you think?
About nature? He said that nature saved his life. And also, he didn't make a hierarchy between the human beings and the other being on Earth. So when he was seeing a tree burning, it was really like if he was seeing someone being murdered. And he reminded him all the traumas of the Shoah. And for him, it was the most important thing to preserve the forest, specifically. So he was one of the first to be invited to international summits as really whistleblowers to claim that the role of the artists today is really to dedicate themselves to this cause. He wrote a manifesto in 1978 with Pierre Restany, one of our historian critic of art, and he was really wanted to the artist to collocate the art as a primary source of inspiration and to fight against the pollution of our times, but not only the physical one, but the intellectual one.
Yeah, these are the totems that you were talking about, creating art out of what he found.
Exactly. They are very huge. We can't really see the scale of it in this picture, but it's very huge trees, and which make it very Brazilian is that he worked with pieces of all the Brazil. For example, he took pigments, natural pigments from the Minas Gerais, but also roots from Bahia and burnt trunk from the Amazonian rainforest, and his work of art are really playing with our senses in the way that he mixed the scales, the textures, the colors. And so when you look at his art, you know that you look at nature, but you don't really know exactly what it is. So you had to freeze and to let your senses react.
I mean, he really was pioneering, wasn't he? Because, of course, nowadays we all talk about the environment all the time, but he was doing it a long time ago.
Exactly, and he was very alone. And a lot of other movement worked with art, but it was not in this kind of mission to really open our eyes. And he wanted us to look at the nature in a different way. And nowadays, it's been like maybe 4 or 5 years that we receive a lot of artists who really want to commit themselves, but he was very lonely at the time.
Tell us a bit about the exhibition, the museum itself, because it's actually set, isn't it, where his studio was when he was in Paris?
Yeah, it's the same alley in Montparnasse, and 2 months ago opened the cultural cross season between France and Brazil. So we set up an exhibition about Frans Krajcberg and his connection to the natural elements at the Espace Frans Krajcberg. And we invited also contemporary artists to dialogue with him. And out of our walls in the Bois de Vincennes, we will open an open-air exhibition of 3 artists, 3 different generations who worked on the Amazonian issues: Sebastião Salgado, Frans Krajcberg, and Rodrigo Braga. So it will be the occasion to pay tribute to Sebastião Salgado, who very sadly died 15 days ago.
Yeah.
And we will also set up another event on Saturday, 14th of June, which is called the Cry for the Planet. And we will make a kind of a re-edition of the Cry for the Planet that Krajcberg did in 2005 during his retrospective exhibition in Paris, where we will gather scientists, indigenous leaders, and the general public to to write together on a manifesto that we will bring then to Belém. And Sebastião Salgado was the key guest of this event.
Okay, so Cry for Help. It is on the, remind me of the date again?
Saturday, 14th of June.
Saturday, 14th of June. You'll find all the details online because I found it myself as well. But thanks very much for coming in and talking to us all about the museum and all about that Cry for Help, which is happening in June. Capucine Boutte from the Frans Krajcberg Contemporary Art Centre. Well worth, I'm sure, looking at the museum as well, looking at those pictures. So I shall do it myself as well because it does look very beautiful. Thanks for coming in and talking to us about it.